The reception of the main 6 ninja in Dragon's Rising has definitely been an interesting and divisive topic, because a lot of the ninja have definitely benefited in this era of the show, and a lot of them have been argued to actually be the contrary. But one of the more discussed aspects of the main 6 ninja in this topic has definitely been Cole. There has been a lot of friction in terms of the characterization of him since the beginning of Dragon's Rising, and I'm not going to be quoting a rather infamous image nowadays in the Ninjago community because that's not relevant to what I want to talk about today, but Cole as a whole has definitely been an interesting one to witness in terms of the community. And considering the fact that Cole is my favourite ninja, I've definitely been keeping a close eye on the character, and I do have a general stance when it comes to Cole throughout Dragon's Rising, but I haven't honestly taken as much issue with him as a lot of people have. But I do think regardless of that, Season 4 has definitely been a very interesting case use when it does come to Cole, and that's what I want to discuss today. Talk about how Cole's being utilised in Season 4, and show how it really does feel like we've got a new era of Cole coming in, because I do think if they carry on with what they've got here, it's a very bright future for the Master of Earth. But let me not waste any more of your time, and let me show you what I'm talking about when I talk about how Cole is definitely getting better. To understand where he's at in Season 4, you have to honestly take a look at where he's been during Dragon's Rising so far. He has been relatively absent in a fair few parts of the show. In Season 1 Part 1, we do not see him at all. In Season 1 Part 2, we see him for basically one episode and he goes off in his own way. And that is relatively fine. Of course, this was during the time where they didn't want to have all of the ninja within the story. He returned for the Elemental Mech shorts, which then leaned into Season 2 Part 1, where he had a side plot that eventually coincided with the main plot itself. He then has a fairly interesting part in Season 2 Part 2. We get to see him take part in the tournament, we get to see him actually get fairly into the tournament, and we get to see him have a fair few fun scenes with some of the new ninja like Frack, like Sora, like Aaron. It is really cool, and I definitely did like what we had there. We then got to Season 3 however, and Cole was basically written off in its entirety in Season 3 Part 1. He had near enough no involvement at all. We got to see him at the end, and we got to see him basically at the beginning, but nothing throughout the middle. So it was definitely an interesting time for Cole. Season 3 Part 2, then we actually had him again taking part within the plot. We got to see him train in Frack, we got to see him actually take on some of the Forbidden Five, we actually then got to see him hollowed out, and then he was the only one remaining in the monastery at the end of the 3rd season. So there was definitely a lot of debate over what was going on with Cole. There was a lot of talk about whether or not he was even a main character anymore. People discussed the potential of him actually being nerfed. Him being the only ninja that got hollowed definitely did leave a bad impression in a lot of Ninjago fans' eyes. So people were definitely worried about what was going on, and people were even questioning if we were going to see him properly within Season 4 in of itself, because he was seemingly disconnected for the most part from the plot. Luckily, fans were quite reassured, because when we were starting to get trailers for Season 4, we actually got to see a fair few scenes with Cole. We got to see him in this new Golem form, and we actually got to see him taking on elemental monsters. It felt like he actually had a part within the season. So people were looking up, and I personally did theorize that he was actually going to have something fairly interesting to do, and it seemed to be that he was. In Season 4, his role was essentially the main plot the entire time. He tracked down the Loyalists, he tracked down elemental monsters, he was the person who first realized that Beatrix was back. He actually had a fair few parts in the plot, and he was definitely keeping up with what was going on. But the biggest thing of all is the fact that he was basically on his own the whole time. Cole basically had an entire section of Season 4 to himself because he was the only ninja, but they were actually keeping up with him and giving him the screen time that he actually did deserve. We learned a lot about what was going on in Season 4 through the lens of Cole, so it definitely did feel like they were actually giving him the time, which was honestly really cool. And considering the fact that it was going along with the main plot, even though he wasn't the main character, it definitely did feel like he actually had some sort of stake here. And this involvement of Cole only continued throughout the course of the season. Of course, in the season he eventually does get captured, but the thing is that he still does have a main stake within the main plot in of itself. He is the first ninja to enter the final battle, and he has a fairly prevalent part in the final battle, and he does actually help a fair bit. He is relatively important when it does come to the final battle of Season 4, and that was just honestly really good. But that for the most part was Cole's involvement. But the thing is that all those little details that happen throughout all of this is the reason why Cole does feel like a true return to form. So let's get into the things about Cole that have actually returned within Season 4 Part 1. The first thing are the Cole mannerisms, the Cole type speech that he has, and just generally his demeanor. One thing about Cole when he is actually focused on within Ninjago is the fact that he often speaks to himself, he makes jokes to himself, he's quite quippy, and he obviously just makes himself laugh. That's something that was kind of lost throughout the course of Dragon's Rising. We got the odd instance of it, but it really didn't feel like it was around anymore. But in this season, he's making jokes, he's having little comments to himself. It's really cool. There's one scene that I will always think of is when he's looking at the loyalist and the one has the cone hat on, and he sat there making jokes to himself even when captured, talking about how ridiculous he looks. This is something I would fully expect from Cole back during the original era of the show, and even to an extent the 11-minute era. It really did feel like something that I just remembered in the old seasons. The second thing that really did feel like returned with Cole is actually his attention to detail. In a lot of the older seasons, you will note the fact that Cole always does have an eye for detail. Occasionally he does mess up, like in Master of the Mountain, where he gets the color of the skull wrong, which of course has led to the theory that he's colorblind, but I digress. But the thing is that he often does remember little details that are actually very important to the plot itself, and that actually does coincide with Season 4. He is the whole reason why the elemental monsters were no longer a threat to the ninja, because he remembered the word that actually activated them, and he was able to deduce what actually was the word to deactivate them. That is something that I would expect from Cole when it does actually come to earlier seasons of Ninjago. The problem-solving aspect to him again was something that truly did return here. The third aspect of him that felt like returned was also his intelligence. One thing about Cole is that he's extremely smart when it does come to seasons where he is the focus. They really do home in on the fact that he's very quick on his feet, and also he's just very understanding on what actually needs to be done. One way that this is demonstrated is actually his elemental powers. Of course, a big aspect of Season 4 is that the powers were on the fritz, but Cole identifies the fact that his powers can come from the Weapon of Desolation. So instead of trying to fight the villain or fight Beatrix just on his own, he instead targets the weapon to actually utilize his elemental abilities, because it was the one thing about him that actually did work. The other thing is that he also does, just generally speaking, use his powers in a very smart way. The main one that I'm thinking of is when he actually escapes from captivity. He uses the powers of Earth to actually knock him off of his feet to disable the chains, which is just something again that really does feel in vein of Cole. And the last thing is his battle intelligence really did return. In his first instance of fighting Beatrix, when he has the disadvantage, he looks for the weapons around him to actually utilize. He pulls a weapon to basically shoot at Beatrix, something that does feel very smart when it does come to Cole. And it's not even just that weapon that he pulls on. He often is seen using some form of bow staff when in his golem form, and when he realized that wasn't overly effective, he instead turned it into a blade. So he is very smart and very quick on his feet, and I absolutely love that when it does come to him. Again, feels like a major return to form here. And the last thing for Cole is just his general demeanor, his honest attitude when it comes to the people around him. One thing about him is that he's always had this energy that's just really positive and upbeat. For one, when Aaron's parents note about the fact that they were attacked, Cole immediately deploys himself on the way to figure out what was going on. Another really good instance is when he finally encounters Frack at the end of the season. Cole immediately goes up to him and apologizes for the fact that he got hollowed out the season before. That is such a small bit of attention to detail that I just really didn't expect them to pick up on. It's honestly not something I would expect to even happen on camera, especially when you think of other moments that could have been in there instead of this one. Taking the time to just pay attention to the fact that Cole was feeling bad about what he did, I think is just an amazing little moment, and definitely does speak levels when it does come to him. It's just nice to see that Cole as a character is just very conscious of those things and very conscious of the actions that he does that affects other people. I really like the fact that they took the time to show that Cole genuinely felt bad for what he did in a fit of anger. Again, it feels very much in vein of Cole. It feels something like I would expect it from him, and I just really like the fact that they did take the time to show that he did actually feel conscious of those decisions. But those four things really do tell you a lot about Cole, and like I said, just reminds you of a time where Cole definitely did have those traits on display. Typically speaking, what you'll find is that a ninja displays more of their traits on a season where they are the main character. This translates to a lot of aspects, like just general personality to elemental power. But the thing is that this season did really feel like they took the aspects of Cole that were a main feature in Master of the Mountain and just really did amplify them, even though they never really had to. It feels like they truly did take the time to give us some more Cole love, and I really do like the fact that they actually did do that, and I honestly do think it paid off because he's a cherished addition to this season. I think Cole honestly plays a very important role this time round, and I do think it definitely did benefit from that. It really does feel like Cole received a return to form here. One thing that I've always been harping back to when I was writing out this video is the fact that Cole feels like a main character when he wasn't a main character. I was getting main character energy off of a character that just ultimately didn't really need it, but it was definitely very much worth it. I'm not saying that not all of the ninja got that during the season, but it really does feel like Cole in particular just had a lot of love, and it's definitely filling me with a lot of hope, because if they are going down this path of making the ninja feel more like main characters in their own worlds, it really does feel like it's gonna benefit off of it, because it just feels like we got a version of Cole that we haven't seen in a very long time. I think a lot of Ninjago fans could probably say that this is the moment where Cole really did feel like Cole, or just more importantly, Cole just really felt like who he used to be. I'm not saying that he was ever bad, because I don't think he was, but it does just feel like this is a version of him that I would have expected to see in Master of the Mountain, or March of the Oni, or Day of the Departed for that matter. It feels like a version of him that just truly feels on point, and honestly just reinforces the fact that he is my favorite ninja, because no matter what he's doing and no matter what the story is, he does get the time to shine if you do give him the opportunity. But that does lead into the final begging question for Cole. What is going to happen with him moving forward? Are they going to continue on with this, or is he going to be sidelined once more for whatever reason? And honestly, I don't think he's going to be. It does feel like Dragons Rising, or at the very least in Season 4, has given us the impression that the ninja team is back. It feels like the core 6 and the new ninja are on form and they are ready for the next threat, whether that's Raz, or Raz's master, or maybe even a new villain. The fact is that it truly does feel like the ninja team are back and they're re-putting the love back into them in Dragons Rising. So I'm actually feeling pretty confident about Cole moving forward. It feels like Cole actually does have a lot going for him, and I don't really think they're intended on slowing down. It just feels like he's just ready to go, and I for one cannot wait to see it. But what is your opinion on Cole in Season 4 of Dragons Rising? Do you like him or do you dislike him? I'd love to know what you think of him, because I do think it's one of the most interesting aspects of Season 4. I just have a lot of good things to say about him. I didn't even mention everything I wanted to say about him. I want to put this here just to make sure it is here. Andrew Francis, I tip my hat to you, because your performance of Cole in this season was absolutely stellar. It really did feel like you took advantage of what the character was this time round. And honestly, it's definitely up there in terms of performances for me. So, if you are somehow watching this, you probably aren't, just know that I really did like what you did this time round. But, apart from all of that, thank you very much for watching the video, and I do hope you enjoyed. And if you did, please consider subscribing. I love discussing Ninjago with more people. And if you do want to support the channel any further, which you do not have to, you could always become a channel member and join the legends that you see on screen. Each of you, your support means the world to me, and I cannot thank you enough. But, that is about it for today, and take care. Okay,